In this video, I'm going to give an analysis of the show Unidentified, Inside America's UFO Investigation, Episode 4. That said, in Episode 3, Elizondo states, and I quote, "I would much rather put this behind me, but the problem is I've seen too much. I've talked to too many people. I have too many reports. I know it's real. I can't in good conscience keep my head buried in the sand. I had to leave the very job I love to get my point across." I have to agree with you, Mr. Elizondo. You have seen too much. I mean, you would have had to have seen too much to say the following during a recent interview.
So let me ask you one last question. Do you believe, based on your decade of serving in the U.S. government on this question, that the U.S. government has in its possession any material from one of these aircrafts?
I do, yes.
You think the U.S. government has debris from a UFO in its possession right now?
Unfortunately, Tucker, I really have to be careful of my NDA. I really can't go into a lot of more detail than that.
Okay.
But simply put, yes.
All right.
And then on June 9th on Open Minds TV with Alejandro Rojas, you have stated the following.
Eric Davis, who's one of the contractors with ATIP, doesn't believe Bob Lazar's story. However, he told me in a recent interview he does think there have been crash retrieval programs. Have you come across anything like that? Do you think that there have been programs to study, I guess, kind of like atoms, material retrieval?
Well, sure. I mean, the government always has. I mean, we have an entire capability within our intelligence community that studies material, whether it's material from a foreign military technology or anything else. We're always trying to figure out what something is, and that holds true to anything. So, as far as specifically confirming whether or not we have a collection capability for the study of UAP, I am going to politely decline from answering that question. I'm no longer in the U.S. government, and so therefore, for me, answering on behalf of the U.S. government would not be in good faith. Now, I did say, for the record, when I was asked on recent interview by Tucker Carlson, do I believe that their material exists? I absolutely stand by that statement, but unfortunately, I don't think I can elaborate more on that.
Right. And to clarify, I mean, you believe that likely does exist, but it's not like something you can prove.
I didn't say that. I'm going to probably politely deflect that question.
Rojas attempted to double check and verify with Elizondo that he merely believes that there is a back engineering program, not that he could prove it, to which Elizondo was unwilling to go along with that. Elizondo said, "No, that's not what I mean," and then he politely asked not to go deeper into this subject matter. You can make of that what you will, but I'll tell you my assessment, or more accurately, one of my hypotheses, and that is that Elizondo knows that the surfacing of ATIP is only the beginning, and that more UAP programs are going to come to light. And perhaps he anticipates that among those, the back engineering program within the United States government is going to be exposed. So for him to give the impression that he has no confirmation that a back engineering program exists, and it later to be established that one does, and moreover that Elizondo was aware of it, would probably be something he would want to avoid. And perhaps that is why he would not say to Rojas, "Oh, that's correct. You're right. I can't prove that such a program exists." And then, of course, the Admiral Wilson Eric Davis leak has recently come to light, where Admiral Wilson, former head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as well as former head of DIA, purportedly pursued and discovered a program within the United States government responsible for back engineering alien technology. And it was reported that this program is essentially run by an aerospace company. How about a recent comment made by former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, in which he states the following regarding the study of UFOs. "I'll bet you anything that China is spending some money checking this out. I'll bet you anything KGB Putin is spending some money checking this out." Of course, China and Russia are not the only nations on our planet with verified UFO programs. France has a UFO program called Gaipan. UK MOD had a UFO program since the 50s that allegedly closed in 2009. Chile has a UFO program called CEFAA. Uruguay has a UFO program called CRIDOVNI. Argentina has a UFO program called CEFAE. Brazil has a UFO program. Hell, even Italy has a UFO program. And these are the countries with UFO programs that we know of. How many are there that we don't know of? Now, if 10 nations on this planet that we know of have UFO programs, what is the likelihood that the technology they are studying is originating from a nation state that has not only leapfrogged every other nation on this planet, but routinely goes all over the globe and infiltrates highly restricted and sensitive airspace with impunity? And if the Navy has any confidence that this uptick in UFOs is stemming from an adversary such as China or Russia, why have they not killed this story when they had every opportunity to do so? Nick Pope recently made a very compelling point with Alejandro Rojas of Open Minds TV, that the Navy indeed could have completely destroyed this story that is proliferating right now regarding UFO encounters with Navy pilots. Here, Nick Pope demonstrates how that could have been accomplished had the Navy stated the following. Look, people, when we use phrases like unauthorized and or unidentified aircraft, we 100% mean conventional aircraft, missiles, and drones. We don't necessarily say that we can identify all of them at this stage, but we are 100% certain that this is just aircraft, missiles, and drones. But yet, that's not what they say. And here's a comment by the Air Force regarding the recent spate of UFO encounters off the eastern seaboard, published by taskandpurpose.com. But could these strange aircraft actually be long-range Russian or Chinese unmanned surveillance aircraft? Probably not, according to the Air Force. While there is a proliferation of UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle technology across the globe, we are not concerned that China or Russia have developed a long-range capability about which we are not aware, said Air Force spokesman Major Brian Lewis. Any drone that could fly from Russia or China to the United States East Coast would have to be at least as large as an MQ-9 Reaper, and the data link used to fly the aircraft would be detectable, said retired Air Force Major General James Poss, who served in the service, former Assistant Deputy Chief of Staff for Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance. I'd be very surprised if these were Russian or Chinese aircraft operating from Russia or China, Poss told Task and Purpose. Now, that's very significant when you consider how ubiquitous and persistent these UAP sightings have been for the Navy. According to a recent article by Tyler Rogaway of TheDrive.com, it wasn't just the Red Ribbon Squadron that Lieutenant Danny Acoin and Ryan Graves are part of that encountered UAP during the summer of 2014 and into 2015. But the majority of Super Hornet squadrons from the base were having the same very kind of experiences. And so were crews flying the new E-2D Hawkeye. Beyond this, these encounters were not exclusively noticed on advanced sensors alone. There were many pilots that visually saw UAP and all described them in the same way, a cube inside a translucent sphere. Here's an artist's rendition of what these pilots have been seeing by Finn Hanley. Now, if all I've went over so far was not enough to persuade you that we're probably not dealing with adversarial craft from another nation that somehow has managed to leapfrog all other nations behind with something so incredibly advanced that we can't even wrap our heads around it, this quote by Luis Elizondo just may do that from episode 4. If anybody had this leapfrog technology, this would be a national intelligence collection priority, period. All hands on deck. Congress would be engaged, but we know that's not the case. But we know that's a fact because we're talking to them. The highest levels of Congress, we're feeding them information. We know Congress is just as surprised by this as Joe Q. Public. Elizondo goes on to say, so that's a deal breaker, and that's why I'm saying if it's a foreign capability going on and this hasn't occurred, dude, heads are going to roll. That's illegal. There's laws against that. You have to inform Congress. So why am I so convinced that this presence off the eastern seaboard of the United States, as well as in the Middle East that has been doing incursions into highly restricted and sensitive airspace of the Navy at an alarming rate is not the result of an adversary and their amazingly advanced technology. Simple. Congress would have been informed a long, long time ago if the Department of Defense was even under the suspicion that China or Russia has developed a technology so advanced that it could infiltrate the most secure and sensitive airspace of the United States military with impunity. The fact that they have not been appraised of this supports the contention that elements within the United States government know that this technology that not only impacts United States military operations, but also has a worldwide presence, is not a technology that was forged by the hands of men. We are on the threshold of entering a new stage in human evolution, where humanity learns, all of humanity learns, that we are not alone in this grand universe. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe. If you'd like to support this channel, you can check out my merch shop where I sell t-shirts. Link is in the description below, or you can even become a patron. Or you can just slap a like on this bad boy and I'd appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you next episode.